Zulma, welcome to the Easy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a while since we last chatted, but we're here now, and I'm extremely grateful that we get to do this. A lot of adversity that you've had to deal with. And I think so many times in people's story, I find myself included, that once we've been able to go through those experiences, we're in a position, if we choose to help others navigate. And I think that is important because there's wisdom that we pick up as we're navigating difficulties in our life, and we can then help others see that. And I think it gives us a bit of credibility as well. But I do want to, before we jump into our discussion, I want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners a little bit about you and what's brought you here today.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Zulma
Mhm.
Williams. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Henderson, Nevada. I see clients who experience trauma, anxiety, and depression. And I'm really happy to share my story with the hopes of inspiring somebody.
Yeah. And I think part of it is just, I think a lot of people, when they come to the United States or the Western world from different parts, there's part of that too. So I want to start there in your story. What was it like to come and move, and some of the challenges you dealt with early on, and finding yourself in that journey of your life in terms of who you were at times? And sometimes we lose sight of that as well because of some choices we make early in life.
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I was
Mhm.
31, didn't have a job. I was still living with my mom, didn't see a future, a bright future there. And you know what? Listen, you have nothing to lose. So I
Yeah.
took it as an adventure it was a teenage dream of mine to move to the United States. And I was like, if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna get back to where I'm at. I moved here, and it was December. It was happening into a movie, right? It was all the Christmas lights, decorations, and reality set up pretty quick. But the first couple of weeks, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm in a movie!" And
Mhm.
I didn't speak the language. I knew how to write and how to read, but I couldn't communicate verbally in English. I started going to night school to learn English as second language, but it was similar. So I had English in high school, 6 years of high school in Argentina, but there were so many students that we couldn't practice
Mhm.
verbal communication. That's why I was able to read and write, but not to speak.
Mhm.
And then I moved here, and then I'm taking the English as second language classes, and it's like the same things. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And I was living in California at that time in a Hispanic neighborhood. And couple of months later, I moved into a white neighborhood, and I started speaking the language like there is no tomorrow. Because
Yeah.
when you have to, right? Like I was working in a laundromat, the one that you drop off your clothes and then you
Mhm.
come and pick them up. And I was like, one of the first things I learned how to say was more slowly, please, because we have a tendency to speak very fast in our first language. We'll ask you, like, oh, how would you like the starch on your shirt? Light, medium, or heavy? And if I don't understand what you wanted, you were going to have the shirts I wanted. But I have encountered that there were a lot of people who were very supportive of me trying to speak the language and were very helpful. And also had a lot of people who were bullying me because I didn't say a word correctly or a phrase correctly, or I had an accent, or they couldn't understand me. And I'm like, okay, thank you to both, because the ones who were really helpful were like giving me hope, and the ones who were bullying me gave me the strength to continue to prove them wrong, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, and I appreciate that. But it's interesting in your story, it didn't end there, right? So you encountered other challenges as you were settling in. What were some of those other challenges you encountered? And then we'll get into how you were able to navigate those.
So I moved, I went to another job in California, then I moved to Nevada to my job. And a year after I moved here, I got fired from that job. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm already, I have my friends. At the time I had a partner. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go anywhere. So I started rebuilding my life here. And later on, I was working in accounting in a big corporation, and I started kind of like reflecting on my future. And I'm not sure I want to do accounting for another 25 years. I was
Mhm.
42 at the time, and I always had this passion for helping people. Like strangers will come to me and tell me the life story, and I'm like, okay, thank you for sharing. So they felt very comfortable. So I'm very inviting. So I wanted to pursue this dream of being a therapist. So
Mhm.
while I was working in accounting, I enrolled in the university here in Nevada, in Las Vegas. And I was 42 at the time. And I want to, so I start building a different future, but I didn't destroy what I my present at the time. Because a lot
Yes.
of times we had this black and white, like, oh, I had to stop everything. No, I continued to work in accounting. I still had to pay rent. I still had to live, right? While in parallel, I was building a different future.
Mhm.
So I graduated at 46, and 6 weeks after graduation, I got diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
Was like, oh, I'm gonna do my master's and I'm gonna be independently licensed by age 50. But life is that what happens when you have other plans.
Yes.
So I put in a stop to my higher education. Obviously, I took care of my health. I moved back to Argentina to be closer to my family. And at the beginning, the treatment is very intense. But as the time goes by, it becomes more manageable. So after 3 years, I was living there. I was like, I think I had it. I'm going to get back to the States. So I asked God for a sign. Be careful what you ask for. I asked God for a sign, and that was the right thing to do, to
Mm.
move back. And out of nowhere, I got an email to my personal email, because after a few years, you're no longer a student. Your university email gets deactivated. Out of nowhere, I get an email into my personal email from the university saying, hey, we have the Advanced Master of Social Work program back. Do you want to enroll? So I was
Mm.
like, okay, I asked for the sign and I got a banner, right? So I
Yes.
moved back. I celebrated my 50th birthday, and I started my master's at 50.
Wow.
My motto is, I had cancer. Cancer didn't have me,
Mm.
because it didn't stop me from reaching my goals. It only delayed me, right? So when I have a client who's telling me like, "Oh, I'm too old to go back to," I started my bachelor's at 42, my master's at 50, and English is not my first language. Which an
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you is like you had to find something within yourself to believe in yourself. And I am curious because you also shared with me you were in a very abusive relationship, and that can also get people stuck, right? Because you were really struggling in there. Meanwhile, you've gone through so many different challenges and been able to overcome them and find your way. The relationship side can be also tough. I am curious to understand from you, like, when did that happen and how did you get out of that?
That was shortly after I moved to Nevada. I met this wonderful, charming guy, and I didn't even know I was being abused. I was in my mid 30s, early 30s, no, early 30s when I came. So I was about 34, 35. So I was an adult. It's not like I'm this teenager that who
Yeah.
doesn't know about life. But what I have found, so I was in therapy at the time. I was very depressed. I was suicidal. And my therapist said, you're being abused. And I
Mm.
said, oh no, you're mistaken. He doesn't even touch me. Because in my head, abuse was physical abuse, right? Like I beat the shit out of you and I sent you to the
Yeah.
hospital. So you start learning about emotional abuse and verbal abuse. And I check every one of those boxes, which
Mhm.
also forced the idea of being a therapist because I wanted to bring awareness, especially to the Hispanic community, because
Mhm.
in our culture, it is normal that you don't have a voice as a female, right? And then later on, when I was looking back at that relationship, I learned that abuse doesn't happen overnight because I was like, I'm a smart woman. I don't know that I'm being abused? And then I learned about abuse, and it's not like, oh, I wake up one day and I'm telling you, like, you're not going to go out with your friends. It's like, oh, really? Do you want to go out with your friends? Why don't you stay and we watch a movie?
Mm.
Oh, really? You want to go to your mom's? Your family doesn't like me. And
Mhm.
is a very subtle thing that starts building over time. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself isolated with an abuser who's telling you that you're not going to leave me. If you leave me, I'm going to kill you, number one. And number two, also that you're not going to leave me because who's going to want you? You
Yeah.
are ugly and you're stupid and you are nothing. And so I'm like, okay, he's right. Like the only one who's going to want me is him. But then as I start continuing to go to therapy and building, so my therapist was working on me and my self esteem, right? Like she said, we cannot change him, but if you change, then the relationship cannot stay the same.
Right.
And oh my God, at the time I didn't understand it, but I trust her. I trust my therapist and I started building myself up. And I realized he owned me, right? Like I was an object. I was no
Yes.
longer a human where he couldn't be doing those things if I was another person. We
Mhm.
were fighting all the time, and I couldn't understand why would you be with somebody that you are fighting all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I wanted to get out of that relationship, it was like, if you leave me, you better leave the state because I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill. Like,
Mm.
so, in having no family here, all my family is in Argentina, and the shame, like a lot of my friends didn't know what I was going through because I was so ashamed of what I was going through.
Yeah.
So, we there was an episode of domestic of physical violence in I called the police, and that's when it truly clicked that oh, I am being abused because
Mm.
it was a physical component.
Yes.
And I was with my therapist. He started individual therapy, and then we started couples therapy. When we were doing couples therapy, there was one time, well, the therapist always asks us at the beginning, from 1 to 10, which number are you? And he was like 8 after a particular weekend, a stressful weekend. And I was a negative 15, right? So the therapist was like, what's going on? And she said, do you trust him? And I said, no. And she said, why are you in the relationship? And
Mhm.
I said, because he told me if I leave, he's going to kill me. And her reaction was like, so she looked at him and she said, is that true? And he said, yes, but I'm not going to do it. And I said, how do I know? And that was the moment when he said, if she wants to leave, she's free to go. So he still owned me up until in his mind, like he owned me. So he was setting me free. You don't have to offer me that twice. I grabbed my keys because we had each other keys. I grabbed
Yeah.
my keys. I gave him back his key. He gave me my key. And although it was like, it's not like he left me alone. After that, there was a lot of trying to reconcile and all those things on his part. But because he made the decision to set me free, I felt safer that he was not going to kill me
Mhm.
because it wasn't me leaving him, it was the other way around.
Right.
So I learned the story of the frog in the boiling water,
Yes.
right? If you put a frog into a pot of boiling water, it's going to jump out. But if you put a frog into a pot that has like temperature, room temperature water, it's going to stay and it's going to die because you keep raising the temperature and it keeps adapting until
Very
it
slowly.
dies,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
I was that frog because it wasn't
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, you're not going to go out with your friends. It was
Mhm.
smooth, if you would, that
Yes.
I'm like, by the time that I realized I'm being abused, is I don't
Yep.
even have the energy or the capacity to leave,
Mhm. Yep.
right? On top of being scared because I don't have anybody, and if I leave you,
Mhm.
you're gonna find me. And he knew where I work, where my friends lived. Right? It's like it's not
Mhm.
something out of the blue that you can find me and kill me actually because you know all my moves. It's a very real thing. So when I find women in an abusive cycle, and they're like, I cannot leave. You cannot safely leave when in the midst of this, but there is a way out, right? And
Yes.
I know firsthand that
Mhm.
there is a way out. And it's like, it is possible, but it's a lot of work on your part in order to be able to break free from this.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
this is another component of why I wanted to be a therapist
Mhm.
because I was like, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
It was like, what? Like, what you mean I'm being abused? He doesn't hit me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wow. I look back at that part of my story and I'm like, no wonder I wanted to kill myself. I
Yeah.
couldn't understand. I couldn't wrap my head around what I was experiencing. And to stop the pain, I didn't see any other way out. I'm glad I didn't kill myself. But at the same time, at the time when I was going through all that pain, we live in such a black and white society. If I want to stop the pain, then I need to stop living because living is so linked to the pain. And
Mhm.
we work through that and it is possible. So if anybody who's listening is having these ideas, I will invite you to number one, ask for help. But number two, ask yourself, do you really want to die or are you tired? Because if you are tired, then you need to rest. You don't need to die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm hearing you were able to obviously build resilience through that experience, and it sounds like that resilience and awareness of saying yes to your own life also enabled you to tap into that when you were going through your cancer treatments in that chapter of
Yes,
your life. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Now, obviously, part of your mission is to help women who are in similar situations and they may not even be aware of it. And as you said, perhaps in community, more so susceptible, perhaps from a cultural standpoint. But there's the other side of it that I also see. And this isn't to undermine the experience of people that are actually going through abuse, but then there's people who claim false abuse. And unfortunately, that takes away from the experience of people that are actually going through it because then it gets put under an umbrella. So, what are your thoughts
Yes.
when you see people misusing the term or misusing it? Now, it could be both men and women, but then they claim abuse while it's not happening to be a victim.
Right. Is a very fine line and I will love to bring awareness. What is it? What does abuse mean to you? So to understand what they are saying, that there's a lot of, oh, I was my boyfriend is a narcissist or my husband is a narcissist. I have more than $100,000 of student debt in order to be able to say that, right?
Yeah.
But social media, especially, we put it out there, like, oh, I'm a victim or I'm being abused. And I always encourage people, like, I will love to bring awareness and information, so I ask questions. I'm very curious about what is it that you are calling abuse, like, and why are you calling it. And also in I have my own podcast where I bring awareness about what the cycle of abuse is. And from the abuser's standpoint, it's like, I don't honestly think that my ex-boyfriend knew that he was being abusive. He had a lot of trauma, and I'm not by any means condoning the
Right.
behavior, but he had a lot of trauma. He has been abused himself when he was a kid, so his own insecurity made him wanted to own me, really, because like I think that there is a lot of if you knew who I really am, you're not gonna love me. So I had to force you to love me. So all those dynamics is like, let's talk about it, right? Because there is so much stigma. And when cases like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp become public,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
and it's like there's so much outrage because it's like, yes, there were like vivid violence in the relationship. Why the fuck do you stay?
Mm. Mhm.
So you are abusing me, but and you know that, and I know you are abusing me, like why the fuck do I
Yeah.
stay? So that's the accountability part of, yes, you're an abuser, but I'm staying in the relationship. What are
Mhm.
the what are the steps that you are taking in order to get out of the relationship safe?
Yeah.
And this is not just like, oh, he beat me up, I'm gonna leave, because women have are 8 times more likely to be killed when they leave the abuser than at any other time in the relationship. So you had to do it smart. But when we made these cases visible in the way that this was done, it makes a lot of damage to the real victims because
Yes.
we don't have those resources, right? So
Mm.
it's like, bitch, like, really? What the fuck are you doing?
Mhm.
So I think that there is accountability on both parts. So
Yes.
me staying in the relationship to preserve my life, and the abuser is staying in the relationship because you are not going to leave, not on my
Right.
watch. Like, so
Yeah.
we have to manage those things. And
Yes.
I think that information is key. The
Yeah.
bottom line is information. So when I'm seeing posts on social media about abuse and narcissists and behavior and all, and I'm like, okay, so man, time to make another episode
Yeah.
clarifying this,
Yeah.
because it's like, think that information really is going to set us free.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the accountability piece, but as you've also touched on, sometimes people aren't even aware that they're being abused. Sometimes they're scared because they feel like the situation can get worse.
Trapped,
There's so
right?
yeah, there's so many fears. Like, how am I? Because at least in the way you've explained it, and I definitely see that where the abuser makes the person who's being abused basically depend on them, right? They've been isolated, so they don't have any friends or family members that they're connected with. So they don't even have their capacity to feel like they can go talk to someone or even have a reality check around the situation. So that can also be tough. There could be financial constraints if children are involved. There could be children like so. It's not as simple as saying, "Oh, I'm being abused and I'm going to leave the relationship," because that can come with so many other challenges. But you're right. I think part of it is educating people and providing the appropriate information. But then when there are cases, as you've touched on, where there are bad actors, people stepping up and saying, okay, this is a outlier. This isn't what always happens. And sometimes people are really struggling. And unfortunately, the system that's in place to protect the people that are struggling gets abused as well. And that's the unfortunate side. And I think the more we talk about these things and create a sense of acceptance and support for the people that are really struggling, then it makes a huge difference. So I think
And
that's what.
there, yes, and then sorry
No,
to
that's
interrupt, but another component that is usually missed in this equation is that I love this man. Is a love
mhm,
component. I
yes.
don't love the monster part of my
Yes.
partner, but I love the sweet part, the charming part, the oh my God, I'm never gonna do this again. The I love you, I cannot live without you part, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when he set me free, and I was lucky because we never lived together and we didn't have children. So I still had my job and I had my financial independence. But you touch on very real things, was like if I have children, the system, at least here in Nevada, is that I need to prove that you are a threat to the child. Otherwise, you keep your parental rights. So you are going
Yes.
to see me in court with the child, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're a dad. And that's when you can kill me, right? If I'm in a shelter or whatever and you don't know where I'm at, you're going to see me in court. So there
Hmm.
is all these things to take into consideration. But
Hmm.
when I was set free by my abuser, I was devastated. I was crying for weeks. And I told my therapist, while I'm sobbing, like I could barely talk, isn't this what I wanted?
Hmm.
Why am I crying so much?
Hmm.
And that's when she made the point, because you love this man.
Hmm.
And I'm like, holy shit, she is right.
Yeah.
I'm grieving not only the relationship, but I'm grieving all the plans and everything that I wanted to do with this man, with the good side of this man, not with the monster side of this man.
Right.
And we have a tendency to forget that. So it's like, yeah, okay, I need to grab all that love and put it towards myself. Because in loving you so much, I'm destroying myself,
Hmm.
literally. So it's
Yes.
like, okay, what do I do with all this love? Okay, I need to start applying it toward myself so that I
Yeah.
can build myself and then recognize the red flags as soon as they are happening. I'm not going to
Hmm.
say that I'm immune to an abusive relationship, but I'm certain that I'm not going to stay as long as I did in this relationship
Hmm.
because I'm not attracting those type of relationships anymore. But even if I make a mistake and I attract that, I'm not going to stay in that for the long
Hmm.
run because
Yeah.
my self-esteem and my protection in protecting who I am needs to come first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something else you touched on there I want to expand on because as much as there's that fear of your life, but sometimes the other person doesn't even need to threaten that because they can make your life so difficult when you try to leave, where there could be financial control, emotional control, all of that, where the individual themselves are like, you know what? This is so bad that I think death is better. Right. And so many people
Right.
experience that where they're like, you know what? I would much rather die because this is so tough. Or they go back to the relationship because that feels more comfortable. And sometimes what I've heard people say too is, oh, yeah, it's not like this all the time, like you were sharing when they experience this monster side. They're like, it only happens sometimes, right? Like otherwise, things are pretty good. And it's just a minimization of the situation. And I often have to remind people like that is the fact that it's even happening at all is a problem and you need to
Right.
see that. And but again, it is a bit of a process. So in your case, one of the things you shared with me, and I'm assuming this is what you also ask the people you're working with, waking up and realizing your mission isn't complete. Is that a bit of a motivator? And I know you don't like the word motivation as well, but help us
Right.
understand, put it all together in terms of what inspires people to finally pick their life and choose that, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And there's more to it. I think a lot of people, when they're able to make that connection, while it's still difficult to step away, are able to find that courage within themselves.
I think that is part of the process, right? It's not that I build myself overnight in therapy or build my self-esteem overnight in therapy, but it was being able to recognize the patterns and to look at them with the help of my therapist. When you are in the picture, you cannot see the picture. That's
Yes.
why we need that neutral perspective into this is not right. Like we have a lot of people in relationships where if the man is opening the door and paying for dinner, I'm like, I'm mesmerized. Those are fucking basic shit. Like, when did we lose that? It's
Yes.
like he's an asshole sometimes, but he opens the door and pays for it. Sir, Adam, what is wrong with you? Yes, the reason why I'm like motivation is overrated, in my opinion, is because you have done shit that you were not motivated to do your entire life. So it's like,
Mm.
"Oh, I'm not motivated." That's bullshit. Like you've been doing shit you were not motivated your
Yeah.
entire life. But realizing that, I think that I'm not sure if it was like an aha moment for me. It was more like a building up of my self esteem to where putting up with this was not longer all right. It was not longer normal. It was not longer. But to your point, is because I kept putting one foot in front of the other, I was able to arrive to that point. If I
Mhm.
would have given up and because I'm not worth it, or because it's too hard, or because whatever, I'm tired. I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I was barely eating. I was under so much stress 24/7. I think one of the things that saved me was my work ethic, because no matter what, I was showing up for work. So
Mhm.
even if I didn't sleep last night, nobody knew in the office that I didn't sleep last night. I pushed myself. So work was a welcome break to everything, because I'm working, I'm not thinking, right? And then I go home, or I go to him, depending on the day, and I'm like, oh my God, now I cannot sleep. What is wrong with me? Why I can? And it's, yeah, as far as you don't stop, as far as
Mhm.
you don't get stuck in
Mhm.
the situation, in your thoughts, in your feelings, you cannot see it. But as far as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to come to the other side. That's
Mhm.
why my message is, if you woke up today, that means that your mission in life is not done.
Mm.
Because if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, if you keep pushing through one day at a time, you are going to come on the other side. If one day is too long, keep pushing through 1 hour at a time. If 1 hour
Yes.
is too long, keep pushing through 15 minutes at a time. No
Mhm.
matter what you are going through, if I ask you, can you push through this shit for 15 minutes? Yes, I can. Exactly. So four times that is 1 hour. 24 of those is one day. 7 of those is one week, and so on and so forth. So
Mm.
we don't have to figure it out the rest of our lives. We just had to figure it out. Can I push through the next 15
Mhm.
minutes? And as
Absolutely.
far as we don't fucking stop, once we get stuck, it's so hard to keep moving forward. But if we keep taking those little steps, we are going to get to the other side. My reality today of having a different present, it started when I started my first English 101 class in 2007. We're in
Yeah.
2025, right? So it's like you can start building while you are still where you are at. So I kept going to therapy. I kept doing the exercises. I kept doing the homework. I kept building my self esteem. And I didn't know how I was going to be without this relationship. I fucking figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about trusting yourself that no matter what, you are going to be able to handle it. And why wouldn't you trust yourself? You have 100% track record of overcoming all the fucking challenges you experience in your life. How do I know? Because you're here. So
Yes.
whatever you've been through could not take you out. Why is this particular challenge different?
Right.
You are going to overcome this too. And I think that is so important to remember that at the time you were going through some of that shit, you didn't know how you were going to come out of it either.
Real.
At the
Yes.
time that you were experiencing it, you were like, I don't even know how the fuck I'm going to make it to tomorrow.
For
And
sure.
somehow you figured it out as you were going through it. So when we think, oh, I need to figure everything out, bitch, no, because you didn't know how you were going to get out of that shit back
Yeah.
then. And yet you did it. So
Yeah.
just keep moving. Don't get stuck. Don't
Hmm.
get paralyzed. Just keep moving. So just
Right.
keep swimming, like Dory would say, right? Like,
Yeah.
just keep swimming
Yes.
because that's the way. So you don't know where you're going to be, but keep swimming takes you out of where you are.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and then when you look back, you see how far you've come, and in terms of
Yes.
your story as well, because you did say you asked for a message from God, and I think were you able to even connect with looking back, even from starting to move from the US and going through this relationship and going through school, all these experiences were preparing you for a fairly significant test in your life of battling cancer. And sometimes we don't really know why things are happening for us. We don't see it. Sometimes we see it years later. And then we're like, oh, okay,
Right.
now all of this makes sense. In the time it was happening, I was getting frustrated. I was getting angry with God. I was resisting. I was not seeing the meaning behind it. And sometimes it will never make sense. But how was it for you looking back then after going through all those things, building up the resilience so that when you were tested again, you had a lot of the tools in your toolbox to be able to deal with these situations?
So when I was first diagnosed, I was like, my first reaction was like, why me?
Mm,
And as I reflected on that, I don't have children, but I had my mom at the time. She was still alive. And I had my sister and I have nieces and I had girlfriends. And I started thinking, if it wasn't me, would I prefer that it's one of them who
mm,
had the cancer? And the answer is no.
mm,
So I was like, okay. So the question moved from why me to why not me.
mm.
And then I had a decision to make. I could sit in the corner and wait to die, or I can stand up and fight. Spoiler alert, I chose the second one. Here I am. But it was trusting in the process because at the time I was in the abusive relationship, I didn't understand why either. And I was like, if I survive that, and now I'm gonna fucking survive this too. But again, I didn't see, now I know I my treatment worked. But at the time I was doing my treatment,
Mhm.
the only certainty that I had was like if I didn't do the treatment, I was gonna die.
Right.
But so I'm like, I'm taking a chance, right? But I'm like, I went and I got my treatment one treatment at a time, one injection at a time, one doctor visit at a time, one fucking pill at a time. I can say now, looking back 13 years cancer free and counting, thank God.
Yeah.
And also thank the doctors and thank me for going to those appointments, right? Because I did my part. I do
Yes.
believe that God will guide your steps, but you need to stand up. We
Hmm.
need to do our part in this. And as I go through shit now, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm feeling depressed or down or whatever for whatever fucking challenge I'm confronting at the time. I'm like, bitch, you overcome abuse and can't. What the fuck are you worrying about? You did it. And that's
Hmm.
what I'm trying to tell my clients. It's like, look at your own fucking life. Everything that you overcame is this not me being Pollyanna,
Hmm.
like, oh no, I believe in you. You
Yeah.
fucking did it. So
Right.
I remind myself of everything I've been through. And I'm like, why is this fucking challenge going to be different than
Hmm.
all the other things you've been through? So just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So
Yeah.
as far as I don't get stuck, I'm very wary of getting stuck, because once I get paralyzed, that's when I lose sight of like how to keep moving forward, right? And that's when I continue to do therapy and I do the exercises. And a lot of times when I'm with my therapist, I'm like, bitch, that's what I tell my clients. But when
Yeah.
it's me, it's different because
Mhm.
again, like my clients, you go to therapy, I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, like I'm human too.
Yeah.
Right? Do you talk about me? The last thing I talk with my therapist about you. I have my own shit to talk
Yeah.
about, right? So when I hear my therapist telling me the things that I tell my clients, it's bitch, you already know this, but you
Mhm.
have lost sight
Mhm.
of your essence. And that's when the therapeutic relationship helps me connect with myself.
Mhm.
My clients, I cannot want this for you more than you want it for yourself.
Yes.
I'm not that type of therapist. Do you want to get better? Then I'm the girl for you. But I cannot want this more than you do it, that you
Mhm.
want it for yourself. So it's like when I'm having these conversations with my therapist, it's because I'm ready to get better. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time and money,
Mhm.
right? I'll
Yeah.
give you tools. If you don't use them, you're going to be where you were last week.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
guess
Yeah.
what fucking homework I'm going to give you now? The same shit that I gave you last week because you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's like that perspective, that neutral perspective of refocusing, it helped me refocus on I already done this. I already seen this movie. And I came on the other side. I'm gonna fucking go through this too.
Mm.
Now, do I get tired? Of course. And sometimes I'm like, okay, God, like I know you don't give me anything I cannot handle, but you confuse me with Rambo. There are 7 fucking billion motherfuckers. Let's try to throw some curveballs to them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I am going through whatever it is that I'm going through. And I'm like, okay, let's see
Yeah.
what is on the other side. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to see that unless I keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
So it's not that we are like, oh, I survived cancer, I survived an abusive relationship, I have the rest of my life figured it out. I barely know what the fuck to do with my life. So when with my clients, I'm like, we're going to find the answers together.
Yes. Yeah. And speaking of clients, because one of the things you're sharing is you can't want it for them more than them. So there's the
Right.
whole notion in our field of work around meeting people where they're at. So when you see people still stuck in those abusive relationships and they're really struggling to take a step out, make changes, how do you find that acceptance in yourself, knowing that as a clinician, your job is to just be there for them and support them. But if they're not willing to make the change, you can't do it for them, as frustrating as it can be to observe as an outsider.
I don't have a lot of those clients to begin
Yeah.
with, but the couple of clients who might be experiencing something like that, I remind myself of how long it took me to come out of the abusive relationship. Like, so I meet my client where it's at, but at the same time, I keep reminding that, okay, this is, are you happy? Is this working out for you? Right? If it's not working out for you, what the fuck are we going to do about it? Because I cannot do it for you. But
Mhm.
also, I tap into my own experience. Of it took me about a year of rebuilding my self esteem to live, to be able for my abuser to set me free. Right. So it's not something that happens overnight. But again, as far as I keep seeing them moving forward, like taking little steps, I'm okay with that. My issue is when I we talk about the same shit 4 sessions in a row, you are not gonna you are not gonna last. Honestly, like I will offer referrals because I want you to be okay. It doesn't have to be with me. So if
Right.
I feel we are stuck, I'll bring it up and I'm like, maybe you just need a different type of help.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like I fucking sleep one way or the other. You're not going to go to a cardiologist when your foot is hurting. I'm not the therapist for everybody, and I'm fine with it. I
Yes.
just want you to get the help that you need. And if it's not with me, I will provide you with referrals. And at
Right.
the same time, I'm being patient in a sense of, okay, not everybody is going to be as ready as I was. And even though being ready, it took me a year. So it's like, I come back to that. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, I really wish that my clients can see themselves through my eyes. I see what's on the other side, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, if you can see yourself through my eyes, I'm like, okay, Zulma, calm the fuck down. Like I wasn't able to see myself through my therapist's eyes.
Yeah.
And she will tell me shit, and I'll be like, this bitch is delusional. But then when I achieved those things, I was like, oh, damn, she was right.
Right.
So I start believing her, even though I didn't believe in myself. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't fucking believe you, but I trust you.
Yeah.
It's two different things.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't fucking believe you, but I trust you. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna fucking do whatever
Mhm.
exercise you are asking me to do.
Yeah.
Because I cannot see the benefit, but I saw the benefit of all the other things I've
Hmm.
been working on. So I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. And she said, I don't care if you cuss me out while you are doing it. As far as you do it,
Yes.
right? And so I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I'm fucking doing it again. But I did it. Right.
Yes.
So I tell my clients, like, get in line. You're going to hate me because I'm asking you to do this shit
Hmm.
because therapy is not easy. We
Hmm.
have this illusion that the therapist is going to solve all my problems. Again, I barely know what the fuck to do with my own life, let alone like solving your problems. But we are going to find the answers together.
Hmm.
But you need to apply those answers. You need to apply those tools. Although it was hard and it was painful, I was in pain anyway. So, what are you afraid of? Oh, this is too hard. This is painful. What you're experiencing now is hard and painful. So, choose your heart, choose your pain.
Yes.
Because if I'm having pain because I'm exercising at the gym after I didn't exercise for a long time, is different than the pain that I experience because I'm not exercising. Choose your pain, right? So the pain is going to be there, but
Right.
is the one that is making me stronger or is the one that is going to end up destroying me? So choose your heart.
Yes.
Right? Going to therapy and doing the work is hard, but continuing to be stuck in whatever the fuck is going on in your life is hard too. Choose your
Yeah.
heart, right?
Yeah.
So is I can see that I tell my clients, I promise you that it's worth it. Although
Yeah.
you cannot see it yet, based on my own experience, I
Right.
promise you that it's worth it.
Hmm.
So it's like I cannot tell you what it's going to look like, but I can promise you that it's worth it. And again, like the therapeutic relationship is such an important component of the success of therapy. So it's like I think they trust me. Like they don't believe me, like I didn't believe my therapist, but they trust me.
Yeah.
And that's how we move forward.
Yeah. And to your point, I think the biggest piece is everyone's on their own journey and they're going at their own pace. There's no time limit. I think when you're ready, you make those changes. And it's not always related to relationships, it's even personal stuff that we're working through. Our therapist can shine a light on it. But at the end of the day, it's our choice to make those changes. And when we're ready, and I think the more we avoid it, the more painful it gets. The suffering gets worse until we're ready to make those changes. And some people do it right away, some people wait, and everyone's rock bottom moments are unique and different too. I agree with you. Zoma, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for sharing your personal story and some of the things you've gone through and have been able to overcome, and now how you're helping other people. It's really inspiring. And you don't kid around when you say you're the swearing therapist. Uh, so for
Right.
listeners,
It's my way of keeping it real. But thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my
absolutely.
story. I hope that if one person gets inspired, then I read somewhere that the trees, the apple tree, the apples are not for the tree, are for the people. In is I think that our suffering is not for us, is to give what we learn through our suffering to other people. So I do
Yes.
appreciate the
Yes.
platform. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And for listeners that want to learn more about your work and find you online, what are some ways they can do that?
I My Instagram is the swearing therapist, and my website is dragonflytherapyservices.net. They can find a lot of sources in there.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put all of that in the show notes. But thank you again, Zulma, for this chat.
Thank you. My pleasure.